This is about a fragging. I wrote about a book edited by Ian Frazier entitled Humor Me, and how I did not find it very funny, allowing that it might indicate some tremendous incapacity in me. I got so turned around and twisted up in the reading of it that I wanted to go to someone and say, "Hey, could you help me out here? Would you read this and see if you think it's funny?" I didn't do that. Instead, I just kept on reading, and that's when I ran into something that stopped me smack in my tracks, and I want to say that has not happened in years. It was written by Larry Heinemann, and it appeared in the Atlantic Monthly in 1997, and it was called The Fragging. I've read a lot about war in general, from Homer to Tolstoy to Patton and the Vietnam War in particular, books and movies, and I think this was the sharpest thing I've come across. I mean to say, it stands out. It's a brilliant set piece, a part that stands for a terrible whole, that misguided, so costly war, that of course technically, legally was not a war. That action, that conflict. I think Heinemann's story perfectly caught the tone, the spirit, and the conduct of that war, and I say that confidently, even though I wasn't there. Calvin Trillin put out the notion that a murder could serve as an introduction and an exploration, a distillation of a particular place and time. Heinemann has a murder, the fragging, and with the cast of characters, the setting of the country, and the war, the feverish desire to stay alive, the dangers caused by the arbitrary obligation due to military rank, and the solutions to those imminent threats caused by the feverish desire to stay alive, Heinemann has scooped all of this up in one net. I found his story to be so real and compelling, it was like being caught in the suffocating constrictions of a python, that I had to get more of his work and learn a little about him. I suppose I must also say, before I continue, that I did not find his account funny. The decision to kill your company officer and doing it, this is not, for me, the stuff of a million laughs. Meanwhile, I stumbled into two things on the internet that are pertinent to Heinemann's story, so I'll include them here and get to him later. One is a 1990 interview with a man who had been a soldier in Vietnam. What he had to say sounded like pure Heinemann. He said he went to Vietnam expecting to be embraced by the native population, the people he'd be defending, while fighting the enemy, the Viet Cong. It wasn't like that at all. The third day in, he objected to the brutal treatment accorded to some civilian detainees. Children, women, elderly men, all tightly bound and being thrown off trucks. A corporal told him, "You better shut up until you know what's going on." And it went downhill from there, he said. What was going on was nuts, he said, and I wanted to get out of there. While I was there, nothing we did made sense. The Vietnamese people hated me, he said, and I gave them every reason to hate me. There was no one to fight. All we encountered were mines and snipers, mines and snipers. Casualties were high. My sole purpose was to get out of there alive. That seems to me to be the exact environment described in the story by Heinemann. The other video I saw was a speech by a Navy admiral. It was at a big occasion, probably a graduation, maybe of a class at the Naval Academy. It was very inspirational. He provided a list of 10 things you need to do if you want to make the world a better place. Most of these he had learned in SEAL training, a rigorous regimen designed to tear you down to nothing and build you back up into a fighting machine. Hearing this brought tears to my eyes because, wonderful and inspiring as his list was, full of noble behavior, honor, duty, courage, and hope, it would be irrelevant and useless in Vietnam, a code that simply, horribly did not apply. There was no way to make that world a better place. If this admiral were in that situation, he would either be the soldier who carefully placed the grenade, or he would be the lieutenant who was killed by it. Those men were in a terrible fix. I'll call it catch-23. They wanted to live, and the only way they could see clear to do it was to kill anything in their way, friend, foe, or whoever. I guess I really don't have to add again that I didn't find any of that especially funny.